Hello. Woof. Hi. This is Brandy Rose Smith live from the Forbidden Library. Welcome to another Storytime Sunday, where we'll be reading more of A Leap into Darkness. There's another story about animals, because they just seem to be serving me well this year. The only books I haven't read that haven't been focused on animals, one ended up a bit too yabai, and one was my own book, so it didn't really count. So we're in the safety of the animal books again. So let's start, as I always do, with a wee bit of a recap. I think that's the best way to go. So, A Leap into Darkness is about the little white doggo on the cover there called Jake. Jake is a good boy. Jake used to do street performances with his family until there was a terrible accident and his peasant mum died in a terrible river accident, and that made his peasant dad go a little bit crazy and get a little bit abusive. But luckily, as some of this abuse was happening, the king went by, and the king was like, that's a sweet dog. Maybe we should protect this dog. And he got adopted by the royal family, who is quite a large family. There's two other dogs, Pendleton and one other that I don't remember the name of. But Pendleton's a very posh doggo and takes no shit from nobody. And I absolutely love him. He's great. And a horse. Problem is the Queen's very upset for some reason. It seems that they lost their eldest daughter recently. Maybe? And she's very, very upset. There's also some hints that she was more interested in the king's brother than the king. This may be a marriage of convenience or something. I don't know. That's stuff we're getting from comments from them, really. It's not... Jake is a dog and doesn't really understand this. This is just stuff he's hearing. We just have to assume. I look forward to anything else we find. But on the way to hopefully try, help fix his marriage and have a family day out, the king takes them to go see a play. And on the way there, they see another street performer, and this one's a wizard. And he's got like a storm in a jar kind of thing. And then when the king and the kids want to go off and watch it, they watch it, and the queen's very unamused. The wizard proceeds to start healing people in the crowd as well, but the queen ain't buying it. Everyone else is buying it. The queen ain't buying it. Jake's not buying it either. Something's wrong here. And she calls him a charlatan. Tells me, get out of the kingdom. Blah, blah, blah. She's got good instincts, this queen, and we love her. We stan this queen. But the wizard, kisses her hand and leaves a little, mark on there for a minute. And then the queen, gets a bit dizzy. So he may have cast something on our dear queen. We don't know. I think that's about where we landed off. I think they went to the play anyway, or they went home. I'm not sure. Can't remember. Those are the main details we need in order to continue with the story. And give me a big yawn pusher. An evening with Plod. Oh, is that the daughters? Is that the daughters? I hope that's the daughters. The queen sat in her withdrawing room with her head down, cradling Lucy's doll tightly against her bosom. I believe Lucy is the name of the eldest daughter they lost. She mumbled to the doll as she ran fingers lightly along its face. Two attendants stood by, one side-eyeing the queen. One side-eyed the queen and then glanced nervously at the other. They both quickly shifted their eyes down as Janice appeared in the doorway with Jake by her side. So Janice is her other daughter. The queen looked up, revealing a face that was drawn and devoid of any emotion. She waved off her servants. With quick curtsies, they slipped noiselessly from the room. Janice hesitated. She hadn't seen the queen since the trip into town when she tried to find the right words in her mind, encountered that magician. Her mother's hostile reaction to Belzadorn that day had seemed almost inexplicable to her. She came forward now, timidly. Mother, would you like to take a little sup with us by the river? It's such a lovely evening, she said, faltering. The Queen looked back down and set the doll on her lap. She stretched out her fingers and stared absently-mindedly at her hands. There was webbing of dark splotches stretched out across the top of her right hand. Janice, startled by the sight, took a quick breath. Oh no. Jake saw the spidery markings too and let out a little whine. With his tail sagging, he shuffled over to the Queen and licked the black blotches repeatedly, trying to make them go away. Oh, what a sweetie this dog is. Mother, you are ill. What's wrong with your hand? Asked Janice. The Queen smiled, brought her left hand over her right. It's nothing. I bruised it against the headboard in a fitful dream. She brought the doll back up to her bosom and focused intently on repositioning a pinned pearl in its hair. Jake sat down next to her and put his head in her lap. The Queen continued to work on the doll. Hello, Zero's Too Short. Welcome. I love people's internet names, you know. Small tangent, just because your name is just a whole ass sentence, and I love it. What other situation do you get to go greet someone as, hello, Zero is too short? It's wonderful. I love the internet. It's great stuff. Janice started to speak, but then thought better of it. Her mother had no further interest in entertaining uninvited company. Janice motioned to Jake. He nuzzled against the Queen's hand, and then followed Janice out. Hello, Luke! Congrats on your 1 year of streaming! And your buff-ass new model. The king, the children, and the dogs were outdoors in their favourite spot, reclining on their velvet blanket and enjoying the last remnants of a scrumptious supper. Supper? They did not suffer, they suppered. Soft cotton ball clouds glowing a simmering orange floated overhead. A cheerful fire crackled nearby, warming the party and joining in on their contented conversation with sparks and sizzles. I'm good. I am a dog today. Woof. Reading a book about dogs, so I got some ears. Atlas grazed in the lush grass, at times sauntering over to the group for a little slice of sugar offered to him by the king. Pendleton looked over at Jake. I think you have streaks of grey all over your snout. Oh, wait, never mind. That's just you. Oh, gee. God damn it, Pendleton, he said with a smirk. Pendleton, enough with your snarling, said the king. You two should be old friends by now. Pendleton put his head down and sulked. The king got to his feet, stretched, and belched. Children, enjoy the fire for a bit. I'm going to pop in on the Queen. She's been a bit off her game. Janice was troubled by her father's words as he ambled off. Jake looked up at her and gently placed a paw on her arm. You should tell him what we saw earlier today. On your mother's... She said it was nothing, Janice countered, crossing her arms and scowling at him. Hello, Snow Taco. Welcome. Nice to see you. But when we were in town, it seemed like perhaps... Jake tried again, timidly. Like perhaps you make an unnecessary fuss. Oh, Janice. Your mother might be cursed, Janice. She snapped. Pendleton snickered. You're imagining things. Then and now, she continued. Belzadorn is a fraud. Mother said so herself. I am playing Monhun. Ah, I love a bit of Monster Hunter. Good luck. May your hunts be very successful, and may you get the drops you want, and may Desire Sense not take away the drops you want. Jake shrank back and whimpered. Janice sighed and stroked his head. I hardly get to see her now as it is, she explained to him gently. I just don't want to upset her again. Oh, that's fair. Okay, I understand that as a kid. Like, no one wants to upset their mom. The blanket suddenly lifted up from the ground in the form of a velvet ghost. Janice, come play with me. Come play with Lucy. It moaned to her. With a start, Janice was up on her feet. Muffled laughter came from under the blanket as it moved and swayed towards her. She stumbled backwards, barely avoiding the fire, and plopped down on a large, smooth rock just beyond it. James! You are truly the infant sometimes, she fumed. James cackled and threw back the blanket just as the rock began to lift off the ground. Janice screamed, hopped off the rock, and saw that it was, in fact, some strange shelled animal with a withered, protruding neck rising up on leathery legs. A small head attached to the neck began to speak. I say, I must protest this indignity. I shan't cede my home to some specious claim of squatters' rights, it said in a resonant voice. The trespasser doth protest too much, Pendleton retorted. He is well aware that this is Princess Janice's home. In fact, everything that he sees around him qualifies as such, including his own person. And yet, he still attempts to obfuscate the clearly defined and essential protocols for which... Pendleton, don't be so dramatic, chided Janice. My goodness, perhaps you should skip the theatre next time around. She turned towards the odd animal and squatted down next to him. I'm sorry, What are you? Yeah, it's Pendleton talking. I just needed to check who was talking before I started that bit of dialogue. He is referred to as a common tortoise. Although he is certainly not common in these parts. He doesn't belong here, Pendleton explained. He turned his nose down at Jake, like certain others sitting with us. I feel like I need the smuggest face I can find for Pendleton. Where's the smug face? Like certain others with us. Pendleton, let him speak, said Janice. The tortoise cleared its throat. For the past 2.5 centuries, I have been referred to simply as Plod. For reasons unknown to me, he looked over at Pendleton. I've been amongst you for several months now, and you haven't seen me, he said, shifting with pride. He turned back to Janice. I am happily at your service. You're like a master spy, said Henry, as he circled around and around the tortoise. I'm replaying through World on PC. I'm trying to blast through it as fast as I can so I can catch up. Oh, I had that problem when World came out as well. I have some friends who live and breathe Monster Hunter. It's very hard to catch up, but luckily they're normally happy to come back to my level and help me out with stuff. They're nice like that. Ba-ba-ba. Yeah, that's Pendleton again. I hate it when there's dialogue at the bottom of the page and I don't know who's talking. Anyway, would you please? Is it your intention to give me motion sickness? Pendleton said, rolling his eyes and sighing down at the little poodle. Jake placed a gentle paw on Plod's hard shell. Where did you come from? He asked as he studied the mysterious creature. Plod thought about his response. Well, I can't fully recall now from where or why. Age will do that to a fellow. But I believe I felt drawn here, so I came. A most unpleasant development, muttered Pendleton. Just then, they all heard a faint, rhythmic drum beating. James popped up. How am I supposed to... Leslie? I'm going to put that one in the Google Translate and ask Google how to pronounce that. I have no idea. Google Translate. Yeah, just normal ask Google Translate, please. No. It's done that thing where it's like, it's done a... I want to copy this. Copy button. No, that's a note button. Fine, I'll just type it. We had this problem before, didn't we? Lesedi. I couldn't hear it because my headset's not working. Yay! Lesedi is what Google says, at least. That's Lesedi in her cottage. Some say she dances with the dead. Spooky. Damn. James, will you stop it with scaring? He waved away Janice and squatted down next to Plod. Henry's right. You are indeed a most valuable spy. A rock slowly on the move unnoticed. Have you gone near Lesedi's home? What have you seen? Father, I mean the king doesn't let us stay out late enough at night to get a closer look. As if you would, Janice snorted with laughter. You're even afraid of her in the morning when she's preparing your breakfast. So the kitchen staff are witches? James's cheeks flushed. Just then, Lizzie fluttered down and landed on Janice's shoulder. Janice gave a start and a squeak, then recognized her feathered friend. James flashed Janice a smug grin. Right, I suppose you're the brave one then, he said. Plod looked carefully from one to another, studying them with his small, unblinking, coal-black eyes. Allow me to address the question. Lesedi. Ah, yes, this Lesedi, who you know by daylight as the king's master chef, reveals her true essence with the darkness. So she is a witch. The group was silent. Atlas, wide-eyed, walked up and lay down beside the fire as it hissed and flared. Just need to warm up a bit is all, he said with a sheepish grin. Yeah, you're totally not here for the goss. Horses in for the tea! The bleeding out of chickens, the removal of its hearts and intestines, the whispering to those that are not there, all the trappings of a shaman witch, continued the tortoise. I suspect you'll want to stay on her good side. If they have a witch on as their chef, that's not always a bad thing. It's always good to have a witch on hand. You never know. And she might be able to help against the wizard, who is totally not a bad guy. Who knows? I hope it's a good witch and will help them. James was animated, pacing. He glanced over at the sparrow. Lizzie, you can slip in and out of places unnoticed. Can you confirm any of what Plod says about Lesedi? I don't know. I don't like flying at night. I'm not an owl, you know, she answered. James looked back at Plod. I'm not scared. We saw a sorcerer in town who seemed to be much more. She can invoke malevolent spirits who will invade your body, Plod went on, paying no heed to James. "And if she's tied with the evil one, well, then your days are numbered." Jake shivered and raised up a paw. Plod paused and waited for Jake to speak. Jake kept his paw up. "You can put your paw down, said Plod. "Ask your question." The evil one?" Jake asked. "Yes, you know, the evil one," said Plod, sticking his neck out further towards him. "I don't think we do know, Plod. Do you mean the devil?" Plod let out. Jake tilted his head. Plod let out an exacerbated sigh. "My goodness, man, what do they teach you in school? I see that I will have to say his name. The Wanderer." Leslie finished the tortoise's sentence. "Oh no!" "Oh no! The witch is here! The witch is here!" She was standing there amongst them, having appeared without a sound. Licking flames reflected across her menacing eyes, and shadows danced across her bronze skin. James gave a muffled cry. Pendleton growled, and the group shrank back. Plod pulled his head into his shell. "He's a searing wind that blows through the sculptor's green grass, windowing out those who simply love the Creator, his Creator," she continued. James tried to regain some composure. He looked up at Leslie, but then quickly averted his eyes. But, Mother says he's a myth made up by those who froth at the..." Leslie held up a hand to James. "Hush, child. He worms his way into the hearts of men, invites them to join in on the ruin he brings, and they oblige." She paused. Plumes of smoke swirled around her and wafted away. Better that they'd never been born. The children were wide-eyed and mute. The dogs, panting, huddled up tight against Atlas. Leslie's face softened, and she smiled. "Shouldn't you all be in bed by now?" Spooky! Spooky head chef, spooky head chef. We do not just have the wizard to worry about. Nope. Chris threw a handful of dry twigs onto a fizzling, sputtering fire. Chris? So, bit of backstory for anyone who didn't catch up on the last one. Chris is Jake's old owner, one of the peasants that he would have, he did street tricks with, and he lost his waifu. Lost his waifu in an accident. And then got a bit crazy and abusive with Jake. And that's why he ended up with the royals. Anyway, Chris threw a handful of dry twigs onto a fizzling, sputtering fire. He sat down on the hard ground and watched the flames' flickering shadows lightly touch and bend along the rocks of a small charin. With trembling hands, he carefully repositioned brittle bluebells next to the stone pile, and then sipped from his bottle. "I know you don't want to hear from me, Rosie. My words got no value." He tipped the bottle back again. "But I've got some good news for you. Jake, he's doing some good. In good spirits. That's something, I guess." He ran a filthy hand through his matted hair and nodded his head. "That's something." He poked at a bluebell and then looked over at the charin again. Karen? Karen probably is what I'm supposed to be saying. "Oh, the bunk stick the hammer?" I assume you mean the hammer for the big bonk stick. The biggest of bonks. I am a bit either a bow or a dual sworder myself. Yeah, don't need this pile of rocks. His eyes misted. I don't need the rocks. Yeah, I'll come home. I'll make it right. I can make. He nodded again, his eyes drifting away as he scratched fingers along the dirt. Oh, that was depressing. Poor old Chris. The dogs and the children were asleep. Henry and Jake nestled between Janice and James on their four-poster bed, and Pendleton stretched out at the foot. A small table clock etched with hounds tracking a wild boar was ticking. A warm fire crackled in the hearth, throwing shadow dancers along a red tapestry. Tinkling laughter. Jake popped up, alert. He knew that laugh. He tilted his head and listened. Nothing. He peered through the bed curtains and squinted at a gilded mirror across the room, his eyes settling on the reflection of his own chubby body. He sighed and pursed his lips, Janice's words echoing in his head. You're imagining things, then and now. He went back to his spot between the two children and closed his eyes. The clock ticking faded. Oh no. Why did the clock ticking fade? Why is this gone kind of creepy all of a sudden? Oh no. What is with these kids' books suddenly being horrors? Jake's eyelids fluttered and his legs thrashed as the vast four-poster bed became a raging, billowing river. Rose was sinking in its churning waters. He could hear Chris shouting at him, Save her! Why don't you? Rose was suspended just below the surface now, her arms outstretched, and long strands of her strawberry blonde hair softly floating and fanning out behind her. She looked up at Jake with clear green eyes and smiled as only a mother could to her child. Her voice was calm and undistorted. Jakey, you have to open your eyes. Oh, time to sleep. No worries, it's pretty short. Have a nice sleep. Night-night. Suddenly, Belzadorn shot up from the murky depths with a wicked grin. He yanked on Rose's leg from below. No one raises the dead, he said, as he dragged her down into the deep darkness. Jake awoke with a start, sweaty and panting. He cocked an ear. The clock was ticking, and the fire hissed. He hopped down, padded over to the mirror, and screwed up his eyes. He felt foolish for seeing his own tired eyes squinting back at him. He shook his head and scoffed. Just as he started to turn away, he thought he saw a shadowy, smiling image in the mirror reaching out to him. Was it Rose? Jake lifted a paw just as the image vanished. The little dog was left staring at his own miserable reflection. He choked back a sob and curled up by the mirror. Oh no, sad doggos. In the courtyard. Janice and the three dogs stood in the middle of an intimate courtyard in the interior of the castle grounds. They were surrounded by a splendid array of immaculately trimmed bushes, sculpted to perfect geometric form and symmetry. Gravel paths wrapped around and through the living green circles, squares and triangles, and brought the viewer's eyes from the hedges down to the colourful flower beds. The air was heavy with the fragrant scent of vivid yellows and red tulips, violent blue hyacinths, and mauve irises. Sluggish bees had come to life. They hummed along, their bodies warmed by splashes of sunlight. The Queen often spent time here, a favourite place of hers for finding peace and numbing tranquility. But she was not here today. In fact, Janice was certain that her mother had no intention of leaving her chamber now. Janice was determined to change that. She ignored the splendour of the gardens and instead focused on several short wooden platforms of various heights and with varying numbers of steps for ascending and descending. She played through her mind again and choreographed sequence of trots, hops, and leaps that would astound and delight the Queen. Oh, sweetie! Kids. Sweet, sweet kids. It's like, I know, I'll show something, Mummy. I'll show Mummy something really cool that it'll make her happy. Oh, sweetie. Satisfied with her master plan, she picked up a wooden hoop and looked over at her reluctant performers. Even though we've been at it these past few days, let's go through it again, she said to the dogs. Oh. We must do it better, of course, for Mother. We simply must cheer her up. The doctor says as much. With good cheer, one has no fear. Or something of the sort. Sweetie. She put a hand on her hip and furrowed her brow in thought. Form a line. Henry, you first, then you, Pendleton, then you, Jake, for the magnificent finish. Pendleton rolled his eyes. First of all, might I suggest that any outcome involving Jake will fall far short of magnificent. Secondly, I would like to request an exemption from these activities, as they are far below. Janice's eyes flashed. You hush, Pendleton. I will tolerate none of your nonsense today. None of your nonsense, Pendleton. How dare you act like the princely pooch that you are. Pendleton whimpered and fell into line. Absolute hound. She nodded over at the little poodle. On my mark. Begin! Up, Henry! Henry clambered up the steps of a platform, teetered on top, and then skidded down the steps on the other side. Janice motioned to Pendleton. Don't be a laggard. Get a move on it. Pendleton sighed, but he showed surprising agility, and he gracefully moved up and down the steps. Janice pointed at Jake. Now you, Jake, like we practiced. With one powerful hop, Jake sprang up and landed on all fours on top of the platform. Janice quickly moved beyond the descending stairs and held up the hoop at shoulder height. She waited. Jake stared at the hoop with glazed eyes. He leaned his body forward, teetered, and then sat down. Come on, what's the matter? She asked him, frowning. Jake lowered his head and whined softly. Aren't you feeling well? I've seen you fly through the air many times. I had a dream last night, he mumbled, of my old owners, and dwelling again on your dreary past. We've been over all this before. Wow, that's sympathy for you, she said crossly, as she threw the hoop to the ground and put her hands on her hips. Haven't I been your friend? Oh, I mean, she's just a kid. She doesn't know how to handle this, but ow! God damn it, Janice. Jake averted his eyes. Yes, of course. You've been so kind. Your best friend, she reminded him. So why can't you be mine? Here, now, or at least pretend. With tears stinging her eyes, she turned on her heel and stomped out of the courtyard. Janice, I didn't... Jake called after her. Henry watched her fade from sight, and then looked expectantly at the other two dogs. Janice is going, Should we go? We should follow Janice. Bless Henry and his one brain cell. Pendleton sighed. No, we shouldn't. Jake slumped down on the steps. Henry trotted over to him and licked his ear. Jake, she didn't mean it. It's not your fault. Pendleton sat beside the two of them. Though it pains me to do so, I must agree with Henry. Whispers amongst the courtiers are that the Queen's health is slipping, and Janice is taking the news hard. Jake tilted his head. But the King brought the court doctor, who told Janice that there's nothing to be worried. The doctor and the King are much alike. Both are in a persistent state of blissful, reliable ignorance, scoffed Pendleton. No surprises there. As the dogs shuffled out of the courtyard, Jake struggled to make sense of all that he had seen and heard of late. What was he imagining, and what did he know? Well, he knew Janice needed him, and he had just messed that up. But despite her quick temper and sour mood lately, given just a little time, she'd come around again, like she always had before. Cheerful, he hoped. The Queen was suffering too. Besides the doctor, maybe she desperately needed a friend, and didn't know how to ask. And the King? Always the optimist. Always content with things just the way they are. Jake sighed. This was his family now, but everything was in a muddle. The steadiness and reliability... Now that was the wrong button. I just wanted to slide sad face for these musings, but no, we got stupid angry instead. Anyway. Slide scuff. The steadiness and reliability of castle life he had happily taken for granted suddenly seemed threatened. What to do? He made his decision. He would go check on the Queen. New chapter. I feel like I should be frowning most of the way. We've definitely gotten into a more tumultuous time in this book. Jake padded quietly up to the Queen's bedchamber. 2 guards stood at the ready and were on either side of the closed door. He looked up at them, but they paid him no mind, staring straight ahead, still as statues. Presently, an attendant from within cracked open the door and slipped out, and Jake slipped in. The room was dimly lit. The cushions were drawn against the windows, allowing only faint beams of dusk-speckled sunlight to scatter across the Queen as she rested on top of her bed covers. The castle doctor was a shadow, busy at work, applying and monitoring the bloodletting along the patient's arms and legs. The King stood close to her bed, a weak smile unable to mask the fear setting on his sagging face as his wife stared off into space, unblinking. The doctor brought a flickering lamp close to her, placing it on the nightstand. Jake's jaw dropped. A black network of snarled vine-like tendrils had taken over the Queen's extremities, completely covering her limbs and stretching towards her neck. The doctor repositioned a leech, placing it on a particularly prominent dark pathway on her pale arm. Almost as soon as the leech had begun its methodical sucking, it violently curled and fell away, leaving just a wisp of inky vivulant behind. The doctor frowned and turned to the King. Admittedly, this illness has followed a most unexpected course, he said softly, but with a disciplined regimen of prescriptive remedies, I am certain that. But what's causing her to suffer like this? The King asked the King, exacerbated. The doctor glanced back at the Queen. and furrowed his brow. Most unusual. She seems behest by both a physical and spiritual assault on her humours, in particular her blood. She's been lately troubled again with our daughter's death, but that happened long ago. How could that possibly... The king's speech faltered as he looked over at his wife. Her once long, silky, jet-black hair was now wiry cores of pure white. Beads of sweat glistened on her forehead. The queen's eyes suddenly bulged up toward the bed canopy. Burning! The word scratched its way out of her throat. Oh, that's a sentence, isn't it? The word scratched its way out of her throat. Like the word is like this living thing trying to get out of her mouth. Oh, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Jake shuddered. The king rushed to her side and placed his hand on her forehead. He looked frantically over the doctor. Bring her some wine! The doctor picked up a goblet from the nightstand and brought it to the queen's lips. She choked as small streams of red dribbled out of the corners of her mouth. She squinted and lifted up a frail hand towards the canopy. There. A robbed man burns at the stake. The fire consumes him. Give her more wine, the king commanded. Her eyes shifted towards the king. My dear, sweet, simple husband, she coughed out, forcing a smile. You must look. She waved a bony finger back up at the canopy. The king stared stupidly up at the ornate fabric stretched across the 4 posts of his wife's bed. His bones are aflame. They disintegrate, she rasped, to hot ash. All at once the queen arched her back and gasped, No! Unnatural! His dust is drawn up by a dreadful bird. I know this creature. Jake whimpered as he shrank back from her bed. But just as quickly, the queen's eyes glazed over, and she slumped back down, her head lolling back against her pillow. She shivered uncontrollably as her lips turned blue. Only darkness now. Black. So cold, she whispered. Your Majesty, if you would, please help me get her under the covers, said the doctor. They brought the blankets up around her neck. The queen continued to tremble as the king stroked her hair. Jake panted and paced as the queen's shuddering spasms of cold continued. He had come here with the simple desire to lift her spirits, but this was something completely different. A deep, primal instinct took over him. A member of the pack had to be protected. He jumped on the bed. The doctor moved in to remove this animal from the queen's bed, but the king waved him off. Jake lay across her chest, nuzzled up against her cheek, shaking gradually. Her shaking gradually subsided as her body stilled. She soon fell into a deep sleep. The king turned and faced the doctor, grabbing him firmly by the shoulder. Share my queen's condition with no one. I don't want my children agonizing over these developments. Especially Janice. Oh, lordy. That's not good. I do appreciate some historical accuracies here. I did some research into medieval times for some books I wanted to write. And obviously maggots was a thing that people did try use to heal stuff. But also the wine is an interesting one because they didn't really drink the water back then because it was dirty. People tended to pretty much exclusively drink ale and alcohol and wine. It also used to be like the women's job to stay home and make ale, basically. Even kids would mainly drink alcohol back in those days. So I appreciate the historical accuracy of grabbing the wine to sate her throat rather than water or anything. Because they wouldn't be drinking water. No one drinks water back then. Everyone was wasted. Drunk was the default. No one had hangovers because no one got sober. No, they probably did have hangovers. But yeah, some interesting historical facts for you of medieval times. A visit with Chris. Oh, he's gonna go see Chris again? Oh no, I don't think he should. leave that bitch behind. A hooded figure with a linen sack slung over his shoulder slunk along the edge of the woods. Born in the wrong generation. Yeah, fair. I mean, you would have to deal with no plumbing and bread that will, like, break your teeth and things like that. That's... The lack of alcoholism is worth it. That's a good point, Snow Attacker. No wonder everyone thought dragons existed if they were all pissed the whole time. Wonderful. He glanced back and then made a quick cut behind a thick ash, leaning his back up against it. He listened as 2 royal guards approached. True, you would not worry about it if you were drunk. It'll be our hides for sure if word gets back to the Queen that our little magician friend defied her wishes, said the first guard. Good thing she hasn't been to town of late. His huge, round, hairless head swiveled slowly on his thick neck as he scanned the woods. I'm sure if they drank what we have today, they would all be in trouble, or there would be constant parties. Yeah, we probably have a lot better tasting stuff than they ever did, because we have access to much better ingredients and have perfected a lot more brewing stuff. Like I said, most of what they drank was stuff that their wives would be brewing while they're out in the fields and things like that. And I doubt they had that much to flavour it with. Especially in places like, well, we'll probably put some apples in it or some shit here in England. I mean, that's one of the fruits we have. The second guard lingered behind, content to keep his thin, diminutive frame in the shadow of his brawny companion. I think that using the feet to crush is more of a... Yeah, it is a wine thing, isn't it? I'm not sure. I mainly know that ale was the main thing, and I just kind of assumed that if they're royalty, they have the more expensive stuff, which is going to be the wine. The wine's not going to be easy to get by, and the wives aren't going to be brewing wine at home, because the ingredients are going to be more expensive. But they did likely use their feet to squish grapes back then, probably. I could have swore we seen him just a moment ago, the small guard said. He seemed to just appear and then disappear. He's like a spirit. Ugh. I hate feet. Feet are minging. I don't like the cheesy flavoured wine. Blech. At least that's what reliable folks are saying. It ain't natural. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. His nervous eyes darted left and right. And that black bird of his with its demon eyes. Do you reckon the bird is a demon? Maybe. The large guard shook his head and looked back. You're like a little girl. Always afraid of this and that, he scoffed. Belzadorn's a fraud, remember? Like the Queen said. Oh, lordy. I love that the Queen showed him up. But I feel like she's set a dangerous precedent with no one believing he's real and therefore not taking him seriously as a threat. The small one sniffed. Well, like a little boy afraid of little girls. Afraid of which little girls? Well, for starters, the Queen. The large one snorted. She's not a little girl, you half-wit. And in case you forgot, she could have our heads just for you uttering some nonsense like that. Well, all I'm saying is... The guards stopped in their tracks. They heard the beating of wings just overhead. The small guard threw up his hands and covered his head with his arms. "Ah, it's just an owl," said the large one, chuckling. "Get a grip on yourself, little girl." Belzedon smiled as he heard the guards walk past him. They spotted Chris's cottage in a clearing. Low bands of fog swept past them as they approached it. The large guard banged on the door, waited, and then banged again. Chris, bleary-eyed, answered. Belzedorn could hear faint questioning by the guards, asking Chris if he'd seen the sorcerer known as Belzedorn. Chris shook his head no, and slammed the door. The guards hesitated, then walked away from the cottage. The large one swiveled his head again, trying to decide in which direction to proceed. With the guards back to him, Belzedorn removed the hologons from his sack and rubbed it with his hands in half circles. The small, dark, swirling storm soon appeared within. He traced one hand from the base of the hologon to the top and trailed a trail of clouds and sparks above his head. He flung his hand forward, and the flickering cloud rocketed up and out, hurtling 100 yards west beyond the guards. The cloud dissipated and was replaced by a new hooded figure striding along the edge of the woods. What is going on? We just yeeted a cloud and the cloud became a person. Okay. There! Over there! The tree line! The little guards squeaked, pointing. The figure looked back at them. That's him! How can you be so sure? The figure smiled, then moved away with an unexpected surge of speed. I see! It's a minor illusion! Look how quickly he moves! It ain't natural, I tell ya! Said the small guard breathlessly. The large one squinted his eyes. Quit your crying. He's just an old man. We'll catch him. Does have a quick step, though, I have to admit. They started off after the figure. Belzedorn chuckled as he watched the guards fade from view. He put the hologons back in the sack and walked towards the cottage. Belladon, what do you want with Chris? Belladon? That's he's not a tropical location, a holiday. He's not a cheap holiday location. Belladon. Belzedorn, not Belladon. Oh, good lord. Chris sat on a stool. His upper body slumped on a small wooden table. He gripped his bottle tightly, the sustaining liquid within nearly spent. A heavy rapping on the door shook dust from his frame. Faint wisps of fog seeped in along the edges and floated across the dirt floor. Chris scowled, heaved himself up, and lumbered over to the door. With all due respect here, I've already answered your questions. I ain't seen Belzedorn, he growled as he flung the door open. Belzedorn, smiling, stepped in and pulled back his hood. Oh, but you have, my good man. Oh, I love that flair. That's supervillain flair right there. Oh, but you have, he said with a small bow. Here before you, now, and not long ago, how shall we say, entertaining the queen? He looked around the barren hut. Hut? I'm really good at misreading words today. How do you fare? He asked with feigned interest as he looked in the meagre surroundings. as he took in the meat. Yeah, I'm really good at misreading stuff today. There was a filthy straw mattress on the floor in the corner of the room. A small pit with spurting fire sat in the centre of the hovel, a thin plume of smoke rising up from it through a hole in the bug-infested thatch roof. An iron pot half filled with simmering thin gruel hung over the fire. Chris glared at the sorcerer. "A man of your stature, got nothing to offer. Yeah." He plopped back down on his stool. Belzadorn stood by the table. "I ask only to stay a short while. The Queen has created a minor inconvenience for me and my travelling companion. Nothing we can't handle, mind you." He unstrapped a leather mug from his belt. "Might I indulge a little with you? This would warm me up nicely," he said as he drained the contents of Chris's bottle into the mug. Damn, comes into an alcoholic's house, wants to stay there and steals his alcohol. Damn, Belzadorn. Damn. Chris looked up distressed. "Now look here. There was hardly any of it left for my supper, and..." Belzadorn gave a quick wave of his hand. "And the bottle was full again. My good man, there's more than enough for both of us." Wizards, bro. That's like the Doctor Strange thing with the pint that he did with Thor. He said with a smile. Chris scratched his head, holding the bottle up to his squinting eyes. The sorcerer reached into his travel sack. "And I would not take from you if I had nothing to return," he explained as he pulled out a baked pie. "Oh. You are in need of some nourishment, plain enough for anyone to see. Let's sup together. I believe your weakness is rabbit pie." Chris winced at those words as he stared at the pie with sunken eyes. He hesitated, and then shoveled out a chunk, hungrily stuffing it into his mouth with both hands. "Hey! Oi, you haven't been here for a little bit. You're not allowed to just come here and start complimenting me again. But you're cool, you know? You're all so cool. Everyone's cool. Everyone who watches this is cool. Get complimented on your existence." Ha! Hungrily stuffing it into his mouth with both hands, Belzadorn smiled. "Yes, that's it. Dig in. Don't hold back. Now then." "Oi! Don't you frickin' dare. Don't you frickin' dare. You've had one. I'll let you pass with one." "I am here." Shut up. You're nice. You're funny. You're cool. Shut up. "Now you're a great streamer, Mr. Many Twitch followers, and really... not the right compliment. Fuck. Go away. No. No. Why are you like this? Why? I have the Uno Reverse card. Still. And I will use it. Compliments reversing now. Meh. What was... let's go back a minute. Yes, that's it. Dig in. Don't hold back now. Now then. Despite her seeming lack of civility, we should, just the same, drink to the Queen's health. What an asshole. Chris brushed crumbs out of his beards. "I shall do no such thing. She ain't done nothing for me." A fair point. Well spoken. And Belzadorn said Belzadon. Perhaps then a toast for the long life of your king? Chris snorted. King can rot. Took my dog Jake when he was all I had left. You were being abusive to your dog. Jake deserved better. The sorcerer studied Chris and then nodded in understanding. Then a drink to your health? He took a long draught from his mug. Chris grunted and tipped the bottle to his lips. The liquid sloshed, but his mouth relieved none of it. Confused, he furrowed his brow and studied the bottle. Belzadon set his mug down and stared intently at Chris. We must speak softly, he said. He slowly clenched his fists, and his face reddened. I'm of a like mind towards this king of yours. A vein pulsed on his forehead. I had a son, a man of peace, an apprentice to me as a healer. He paused, blinking back tears. Under my care, he muttered. The sorcerer looked away from Chris into the small flames. He was taken from me, wearing the Vinish colours, killed by cowards from Gorsland. Not engaged in battle, but trying to save others. Okay, if you're done, I'm taking away the reverse card now. That is the wrong thing. I took away the background music instead. A plus non-scuff screamer? I do scream a lot in my Minecraft stream, so that's not incorrect either. Anyway. Streamer. Epic streamer. What are you on about? Yeah, anyway. Belzadon slammed his fist down, spoke with quick, fevered tone. Your king... He had neither the competence to achieve victory nor the honor to submit to terms, and so my son died in vain. I couldn't forgive it, and my beloved wife couldn't forgive me. He swiped at a tear and nodded his head. She held me accountable. After that, I could not find her. He cleared his throat. Even now, the sculptor chooses not to hold the king accountable to someone, so someone else must pay. He lowered his head and went silent. Just then, there was a small tapping on the door. Chris started to get up, but Belzadon pushed him gently back down. The sorcerer waved a hand at the door, and it slowly creaked open. Fog rolled in and separated, revealing the raven. The raven looked suspiciously over at Chris, then glided over to Belzadon's shoulder. The bird clicked and squawked at the sorcerer. Chris's eyes bulged in terror, and as he covered his ears. Forgive my friend's harsh tone, but his news is of utmost importance, the sorcerer said with a sinister grin. Chris cautiously lowered his hands. Your queen has fallen deathly ill. There are no doctors who can help her. Of this I am quite sure. Chris, slack-jawed, stared at Belzadon as he lifted his mug up high. And now we must drink to the queen, that she may live a long, life free of any misery or pain. The sorcerer gulped down his drink, slammed his mug on the table, and cackled. A gust of wind howled through the cottage entrance and encircled the fire, lifting up a small tornado of flames. The raven bobbed his head, let out a screech, and then flew out the door into the night. Oh no, the queen's in trouble. The queen's gonna die. Unless Jake happens to have any cool main character doggo powers that we don't know about. That would be great. If we could get those, please. The king carefully closed the queen's chamber door as he turned and stepped out into her withdrawing room. He was startled to find Janice and James, along with the dog, standing before him. Janice had fire in her eyes. "Father, it's been 3 days now since you've let me in to see her. You said she was getting better. So why don't you allow?" The king lifted a hand, sighed, and looked down at her with kind, tired eyes. "The doctors have assured me that she is getting better. And though her physical appearance belies her improvements, it's still not something little girls should see." Janice's face turned beet red. "I am not a little girl, and these doctors are fools," she said with clenched fists. She burst past her father and flung open the chamber door. "Oh no. Sweetie, sweetie." The castle doctor and 3 others were brought in from town. I'm gonna have a drink. Okay. The castle doctor and 3 others brought in from the town were conferring with each other quietly in the corner of the room. They quickly fell silent as Janice flew in through the door. Jake and the rest of the royal family followed. Janice's eyes went wide as she stopped in her tracks. Jake trembled. The queen's hair had fallen out in clumps on her pillow. Dark black tendrils pulsed and curled around her neck. Other thin, stable strands of webbing covered her balding head. She babbled faintly, tightly gripping Lucy's doll. Her eyes stared, wild and unblinking, at her bed canopy, at large black wings beating overhead, cruel beady eyes staring down at her, and a knife-like beak slashing and piercing the air with ruinous clicks and squawks. With her face contorted in pain, she lifted her frail hands up to her ears. Lucy's doll dropped to the floor. "Soulless fiend, why are you here? Why do you torment me?" she rasped. Janice picked up the doll. "Mother, here's Lucy's doll," she said. "Here's Lucy. It should be Lucy's doll. I'm pretty sure that's an error," she said, choking back tears. She placed the doll gently on her mother's bosom. The queen moaned as her eyes flicked to the doll, then back up at the canopy. She saw a distorted image of... She scrunched up her eyes. Could it be the sorcerer? This person was more youthful, though, and he was screaming, hunched over a young man dead on the ground, with an arrow buried deep into his back. It's too late. Too late," lamented the queen. "Somebody help her!" Janice cried. Pendleton and Henry backed up against the door. Jake pawed at the queen's bed and then looked around the room, trying to find anyone who would heed Janice's pleas. But the king stood frozen, glassy-eyed, and the doctors huddled at a distance, frowning and looking away from the queen, whispering to one another again. The queen gasped as she saw a thin line of cockroaches crawl out of the young man's fatal wound. At first, they simply moved in random directions across his lifeless body, as more streamed out. Very soon, though, they took notice of the queen watching them. They became a mass of flagellating antennae and clicking legs that surged towards her. She shuddered as the revolting wave washed over her limbs and skittered across her lips and eyes. Oh god, this is awful. This is a kid's book. This is supposed to be a kid's book again. Why are the kids' books so scary? Why? Ugh. Wild with panic, she gouged at her face and arms with her nails. "Why doesn't someone do something?" sobbed Janice. The doctors broke off their conversation and moved to the bed. They tried to hold down the Queen's arms as she thrashed about. Jake jumped up on the bed and tried to lie on the Queen's chest, but her flailing limbs sent him to the ground. He stepped gingerly back to join the two other dogs. Yeah, I don't blame you, Ray. Wait. Ray, what the hell? This is your book. You're not allowed to leave because it's scary. This is your fault. You're the one traumatizing us right now. Ray. There was a rap at the chamber door, and then a guard stepped into the room. "We are not to be disturbed," said the king, angered as much at his own helplessness as he was with the interruption. The guards lowered his eyes. "Forgive me, but we have urgent news. The one called Belzadorn arrived uninvited on the castle grounds. Even now he's held fast in the dungeon." He looked back up at the king. The king cast foggy eyes at the guard. "But how is that of any importance at a time like this?" You have to face up to these people you've traumatized now, Ray. "This Belzadorn said, his words not mine, that there is hope yet for the Queen. I offer my humble services," the guard explained. "Of course he does! It's his bloody fault!" The king stared at the ground and swayed before leaning against the guard for support. James's eyes lit up. "Father, it's the sorcerer! He can help her, please! Let him try!" "No, don't but you have to let him try, otherwise the Queen's not gonna survive. But he was the one who did this in the first place, and he could just kill her anyway, and he might do something even worse to—" "I don't like it! I don't like it! Ugh." "Yes, of course," Pendleton whispered to Jake and Henry. "Makes perfectly good sense. We've seen his impressive talent and wisdom on display. He'll know what to do." Honestly, Pendleton, I'm surprised that you're not questioning his very convenient timing. Jake put up a paw. "I'm not so sure about him. He makes me nervous. My gut," Pendleton smirked. "Your instincts, your gut. All that savage rot is incompatible with the civilized way of life we practice within these castle walls. Try not to make this about you again." Jake began to protest, but James motioned to them to be quiet. The king looked over at his wife. Her movements were subdued now. Small globules had formed, their progress easily tracked as they ballooned and tunneled up through the black network on her arms. "Oh, this is awful. Oh, that's the wrong button again. Yep, it's fine. It's all awful." As a large bubble pushed up through her carotid artery, the Queen jerked her head sharply towards the king, her eyes lucid. "I will have words with you," she said in a clear voice. The king, bewildered, hesitated, and then released his grip on the guard. "Leave us," he said, looking around the room. Janice gave him a small, pleading look. "All of you," the king insisted. Janice sniffled as she and the others filed out of the room. The king closed the door and then turned back to his wife. There were no sounds now, save the flickering of candles and the Queen's laboured breathing. But he moved closer. "My beloved, we must find a way." The Queen snapped upright in her bed. "Be silent!" she hissed. "Hear me and heed my counsel. Do not bring that necromancer to me. She's nearly dying and she's still so on it. I love this queen. I love this queen, and I'm gonna be so sad because she's totally gonna die. The king raised an eyebrow. But I thought you didn't. I have misjudged him, she bellowed, her eyes wide with fear. He and his black cow demon come from the very bowels of evil. He has bitter revenge in his heart, but I cannot see it clearly. He revels in sharing his pain and seeks to bring harm to us. The king shook his head in despair. I don't understand. Perhaps it's the fever that distorts your thoughts. The queen leaned back against the pillow and smiled. She let out a shrill chuckle that soon became shrill laughter. You cannot be reached, she said. Her laughter ceased abruptly as pain racked her body. She gripped her chest. A sweat poured down her face. Cannot be reached. Her voice faded as her eyes closed, and she slipped into unconsciousness. I know the king's not going to listen to her, but because the king wants to save his wife. I get it. But he shouldn't do this. This is bad. The king stood silent, unmoving, his head down. He tried to find the courage to look at his wife, but found he could not. Instead, he wiped away tears, took a deep breath, then stepped out of the room, closing the door behind him. They were waiting for him in the withdrawing room. The king addressed the guard. Take me to Belzadorn. I'll speak with him. Father, no. King, no. Father, I'll go with you, said James eagerly. But Janice stepped back away from her father. I'm staying with Mother, she said resolutely. The king nodded and moved away quickly, with the guards, followed by James and the dogs. Janice, with watery eyes, slowly opened her mother's bedchamber. Oh, Lordy. Oh, Lordy Lou. Scared. I'm scared. There's been some horrifying imagery in it. After trudging along damp, twisting, torchlit corridors deep in the bowels of the castle, they finally arrived at the dungeon cell where Belzadorn was being held. The guard unlocked the door while 2 others stood outside the cell at the ready. The king and his son filed in with the dogs in tow. Belzadorn smiled as he reviewed the small entourage. Your Majesty, what a delightful scene. You brought the whole family. Well, nearly. How charming. The king frowned. Don't patronize me. The queen has little time now. You know that's the only reason I stand before you now. Belzadorn's smile faded. His face hardened. Indeed. I don't underestimate your ability to perceive what is true. She won't live to see the end of the day. Sir, please don't let that happen, James cried, his face racked with anguish, and he suddenly looked very young, a little boy desperate for his mother. The king's eyes shone with fury at the sorcerer. Then our conversation is over. Race ahead of her to your own grave. Belzadorn's features softened as he gazed down on James with affection. You are a brave young man. All is not lost. As the sorcerer said these words, there was a soft rustling and a flickering of torchlight as a cold draught pushed through the cell. Jake shivered as he looked around wide-eyed. He growled softly. Pendleton rolled his eyes down at him. We're in a dungeon, he said in a hushed tone, presumably remarkably similar to your own prior dwelling. Must we forever be held captive by your Hysterics? Histronics? This uses big words. Henry tilted his head. Let's histronic. I mean, there's a diary. There's a not diary, a dictionary thing here. We should use it. We should learn words together. Excessively theatrical or dramatic character or style. Historic outburst. I see. I learned a word. Henry tilted his head. What's histor? I didn't know either, Henry. We're on the same page. He started, but Pendleton held up a paw to the little poodle's face. The king rubbed James's shoulders, and then looked up at Belzadorn. My son has faith in your abilities, but it's plain that the queen's faculties are blunted. Pendleton is 100% show-off, he is, but he's a wonderful show-off. He's an ass, but we love him. Yet she gives compelling warnings to not allow you near her. Sadly, then, her demands complicate our response. Then said Belzadorn as he ran a hand gently through James's hair. Stop touching the child, Belzadorn, it's weird. But I wonder, am I in more danger of defying her wishes or yours? He asked, locking eyes with the king. The king sucked in air as his ears reddened. I am the ruler of this kingdom, he sputtered. You shall hear only my words and obey them. You will help the queen. King! Why? She said no. She said no. Consent. She did not consent to the necromancer. God damn it. James pushed himself into Belzadorn's arms, sobbing. Please, I've seen you save others. The sorcerer stood stiffly at first, but then slowly encircled his arms around the boy. Oh no, he's like, oh, this is my child now. I lost mine, this is my new one now. Oh no. The sorcerer stood stiffly. Oh yeah, sorry, I just read that. I will try. For you, he said, blinking back crocodile tears. At the very moment, a frigid wind swept through the cell, blowing back Belzadorn's hair. Do not defy my wishes! A whispering voice could be heard, only the sorcerer could hear. His face paled. Jake, hair standing on end, slowly backed up towards the cell door. Pendleton gave him a derisive snort. Belzadorn, his face now contorted in misery, grasped James's hand. The sorcerer closed his eyes and rapidly muttered short, silent words. No! Jake, bite him, bite his hand off right now! He opened his eyes and grinned, pushing James's hands down to his side. Quickly, he said hoarsely. There's little time now. They all filed briskly out of the cell. No. No. Ah. I do not approve. Do not approve. Janice and the Queen. The Queen lay in her bed, muttering. Weak candlelight cast. What's it? Oh. Sorry about that. Blah. Weak candlelight cast thin shadow fingers that skipped across her emancipated figure. So cold. So cold. She whispered as she dragged bony hands along arms covered in pulsing black vines. The doctors glanced over at her and then continued hushed conversations at the foot of her bed. Janice repositioned the blankets around her mother's chin. The Queen's eyes fluttered open. She looked at her daughter. Is that you, Lucy? My angel. Janice choked back tears. Mother, it's It's Lucy. I'm here.
Oh, sweet girl. She will do anything to make her mother happy. Oh.
She ran her fingers slowly across her mother's cheek. Tendrils across the queen's head bulged and bubbled. Her eyes went clear. My sweet Lucy, I'm sorry we had so little time together. She took a strained breath and reached out to Janice, stroking her hair. You're the lady of the house now. Help your father. He does not see the... The queen's word cut short, as a bitter blast of air extinguished all candles save one. She collapsed back against the pillow and went still, her eyes open and lifeless. Janice gasped. Mother? Mother? Please speak to me. She buried her head in her mother's chest. The doctors looked on, bewildered. The king burst into the chamber, followed by Belzadorn, James and the dogs. Jake saw Janice weeping. He snapped himself out of his own initial shock and hopped up on the bed, gently nuzzling against her. The king looked at his wife and daughter, then stormed over to the castle doctor, shaking him. What's happened here, man? What's happened to the queen? Oi! Don't you start. Don't you start. You nice dinosaur person, you. The doctor opened his mouth, but could say no words. He looked away sadly. The queen is dead. Haha, and you just said that while the Uno reverse is up, so you're so cool. Ha 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 ha. I win. The sorcerer said quietly. The king glowered at Belzadorn, then motioned to the guard. Get him out of my sight. News of the queen's... It doesn't leave this room, he said, his voice cracking. The guard nodded and led Belzadorn out of the room. James and Henry huddled up against Janice and Jake, while Pendleton sat in the corner of the room, unsure what to do or say. The king approached the bed and then stopped. His eyes went vacant and his hands quivered. His body swayed and his knees buckled. Doctors rushed over to him as he collapsed to the floor. Well, that was a short chapter. Oh no. Rip. But I'm kinda glad in a small way that she got to die, because then Belzadorn didn't get to do what he wanted to do, kind of thing. She got to, like, die the way she wanted to and not brought back without consent. Consent is important. The Raven back in town. A few days later, as the dust settled over the town square, the Raven perched on the tilted roof of a large merchant shop. It is sad. It is sad. There was no good way out of that. Carefully inspecting the activities of the people below, the citizens moved around in their practice routines and rituals, eager to conclude their affairs for the day, so they could return home to families and suppers. In a narrow, dark alley off the main thoroughfare and out of sight of the Raven's watchful eyes, Chris sat on the ground, leaning against a wall. He sloshed his bottle, then took a sip. He quickly set it down and rattled his leather mug. He was rewarded with the last penny from a passerby. The Raven stood up, tall now from his perch, and spread his wings, casting a wide shadow that stretched over the thinning townsfolk. As his eyes darted from one person to another, he emitted a series of muted clicks and squawks. One person bumped into another. Chris looked up at them with tipsy interest. "Why don't you watch where you're going? I've half a mind to give you a good throttling," snapped a bear-sized man with a beard that ran down over a protruding belly. Oh wow, that is a big beard. Holy duck. A wisp of a man knocked back several steps with the collision, and now seemingly swaying in a slight breeze, looked up, wide-eyed at the behemoth. "The Queen is dead! A horrible death! Horrible!" "There's been no announcement. You're delirious," snorted the bear. Another man, a well-dressed merchant, approached the first two. "It's true, and it's a death we all deserve for our transgressions," he said fearfully. "A just wage for our sins, against our Vinish brothers. And where's our king? Who rules? Who protects Scotland? Surely not James, who's but a little boy. We're lost." "Oh, your parents are you? Hi, Luke's parents. Nice to say hi." How do I do that? The hairy giant took a menacing step towards the wealthy man. "What's this rubbish about Vinland? It's a great anime. What are you talking about?" If anyone hasn't watched Vinland Saga, do it. "Why, you traitor. What you deserve is a beating, and I'm gonna give it to you." Inside a tavern just across from the square and the alley where Chris sat, another conflict had developed. A man dressed in tatters rose from his seat at the bar and turned towards the exit. The barkeep, a fire plug of a man with a shiny cue ball for a head, put a large hand out to block the man. "Where do you think you're going? You don't think you can drink here for free, you know." "You're a lunatic, ain't you?" the patron seethed. "I already paid you, and you're not getting another penny from me. Leave me be. Can't spend another minute around this doomed town." Another man at the bar eyed the accused and addressed the barkeep. "He's always stealing from you. I seen him. He and his friends, come to think of it. They don't really come from these parts. They're not from round here." "And there's more and more of them just come waltzing in these days. What with the king being sitting in his castle behind his walls and letting the wall around our town fall to ruin. His gesture of peace, he calls it, since we're just brothers," he snorted. "We ought to drag these brothers back home to Vinland," cut in the patron, finishing the man's sentence. "That's what you think. Not where I'm from, but it's where I'm going. Nothing here now for us but the Black Death. It's what killed the Queen, they're saying, and the King's been trying to hide it." A group of men drinking at a table close by nodded their heads in agreements. "Folks are coming to their senses, though," the patron continued. "It's bells a dawn and the finish for us now. We want to live." The barkeep clenched his fist. "By the heavens! I'll beat you for saying that. Them words, wishing the Vinland upon us." In rage, he vaulted over the bar, grabbed the patron, and dragged him out of the tavern, dumping him into the ground of the square. I wanted him to just punch him in the face and start a bar fight. Why? This is the second book that has denied me a bar fight. I do have another book in my stream requests that might have a bar fight, so maybe I can read that one next.
Just as quickly, though, the men at the table had followed after them and started pounding on the barkeep. Yay, there's my bar fight! All about the square now. Ongoing arguments quickly developed into skirmishes as the ravens circled overhead, his clicks and squawks showering down from above. The giant had lunged and gripped the throats of the wisp and the merchant. A farmer was rolling around on the ground with a man whose pigs had surely torn up his barley fields. And the barkeep was fighting back valiantly against his assailants, but was soon overwhelmed and dragged away. Chris watched, slack-jawed, as pandemonium unfolded around him. In the shadows, Maisie sat alone and took in the bedlam. She finished licking a paw, then slunk away from the chaos, headed towards the woods. Oh yeah, Maisie! I forgot about that gang. What was it? Vincent's gang. Gang of street doggos and a cat. Maisie makes a social call. This is probably the last chapter we're getting in today. Fair warning. Much later that same evening, the king lay in his bed, his eyes closed, his face already stretching thin. He was muttering in a troubled sleep. Oh, fair enough, Luke. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the compliments. I guess I'm supposed to say thank you for compliments. That's how you take compliments nicely, right? You just say thank you. But anyway, yeah, thank you for coming. I hope everything goes well for you. Have a good day. Have a good day. The king lay in bed, his eyes closed, his face already stretching thin. He was muttering in a troubled sleep. I'm surprised he can sleep at all. The children had supped without him, and they filed into his chamber now and sat near him as doctors traded ideas and confusion with one another. He's depressed. Obviously he's depressed. His wife just died. This case is most vexing, said the castle doctor, frowning at a colleague. 3 days now that he has slept. Nothing physically wrong. Humoral balance is well maintained. He pulled on his thin, pointed beard. Janice rubbed the king's hand. Father, please wake up. We miss you sorely. Okay, I was wondering why the town was like, where's the king? Out of fucking commission, apparently. Damn. Jake scratched at the blankets and barked up at him, whining. He jumped up on the bed and licked the king's face, and then put a head down on his chest. It's happening all over again, Jake thought. People I care about, who are desperate for assistance, and I don't know how to help them. James stood a distance, scowling. Perhaps Mother was right. He's weak. Weak-hearted, he said as he swiped at a bitter tear. Don't say that, Janice rebuked him. He's your father and he deserves your respect. You're still here, Snow Taco. Hi. Are you having a good time? Are you also sad? Have you killed many monsters? That's right. He's my father. And you're not my mother, he retorted, eyes blazing. Oh, this book is painful. He looked around the now silent room and then stomped out. Jake hopped off the bed and called after James as he disappeared. Janice sighed and stood up. We're all a little worn out. Let's come back and visit in the morn, she said to the dogs. They nodded and filled out. In the children's chamber, Jake was curled up in a ball in front of the mirror. The clock struck the hour of 1. He stood up and pawed at the glass, and then waited, his nose pressed up against it, as though he were trying to push his head through. Why would she come back here to see me? Even if she could, he muttered, shaking his head in disgust. I did nothing for her. He lay back down and closed his eyes. The clock struck 6. Jake thought he heard a faint rustling as he roused himself from sleep. Groggily, he struggled up, stretched, and then pressed his nose against the mirror. Suddenly, Maisie's reflection was staring back at him. Startled, he yelped and jumped straight up in the air. The cat hissed and backed away. Jake's surprise turned to confusion. He couldn't possibly fathom why Maisie would be here in the castle. She padded over to the chamber door and looked back at him. The children murmured, shifted in bed. Pendleton mumbled some snarky, jumbled half-sentence regarding Jake and all other misfits overrunning the palace. Then the room went silent, save for the ticking clock. Jake looked longingly at the bed, then back over to Maisie. It had to be his imagination, but she almost seemed to shrug and roll her eyes at him. The cat walked out of the chamber. Jake hesitated, looked back at the mirror, and then followed after her. A minute later, Henry hopped down from the bed and crept out of the room. Ready for shenanigans, I imagine. And that's all we're gonna read for today, methinks. I hope you enjoyed. I did and didn't. Honestly, it hurt. This book has some terrifying descriptions and imagery, and is genuinely quite sad right now. After the first deaths as well, and right at the start, and then we've got this. There's been 2 deaths in this book already, and the king's probably well on his way. Oh lordy, this was a lot more emotionally draining than I thought it was gonna be. Ah well, it's great. It's been such a wonderful book so far. I really look forward to finding out more. I'm genuinely so excited to find out more. I'm excited to read it again next week. I am. If you are, then please, if you are and you would like to read more, there are links in the description to go buy it for yourself. If you Jake has been sitting next to me listening to... Oh, there's a real Jake. Oh my gosh. Hello, real Jake. You are a good boy and are loved. Oh, thank you. Enjoyed as always. Your readings are genuinely enjoyable. Ah, you're all nice. You're all very nice. Yes, links in the description if you'd like to buy the book for yourself. If you do enjoy me reading this book, leaving reviews on either Amazon or Goodreads for this book also helps out the author a lot. It is very good. It is a nice way to support authors without having to pay money. Other than that, I will be streaming again 4 times next week like last time. And I know I talked in my last stream about shifting my Friday's stream to Thursday because Friday was a little bit quiet. I can't do that. I realized I can't do that because the game I want to play on Friday comes out that Friday, so I literally can't stream it any earlier. So I've shifted the stream time a little bit to what my analytics say that people are going to be there for. So hopefully it should be more convenient for everyone to watch. But I will post that schedule not long after the stream. And I'll be back tomorrow with more Minecraft. It's very scary. It's a very scary game. It's I thought it was just a nice Lego game with blocks, but no, jump scares aplenty. I think that's it. I think that's all I have to tell you. Oh yeah, buy my books as well. That link is in the description. Other than that, I had fun. I hope you had fun. Thank you, Ray. Goodbye from New NC, USA. What's NC? That's not New York. Anyway, thank you, Ray. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Snow Taco, for being in the chat. And Potrick. And Zero's Too Short for being in the chat. Thank you to anyone who... North Carolina. Oh, well, hello from North Carolina. Hello from the UK. From England. Anyway, yes, thank you for all those people being in the chat. Thank you to anyone who lurked, and thank you to anyone who watches the VOD. If you have not already, I would highly appreciate pressing the like button or the or the subscribe button. That would make me happy. We are how many subs away now? We are 4 subs away from 300. If anyone hasn't, please do the thing. It's a good button. Press it. And I'll leave you alone from there. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Brandon Smith live from the Forbidden Library. Good